Hi, this is Mark from MC Media. Welcome to the second episode of our Origins vlog series, where we're chatting to local entrepreneurs and business people to find out how they got started and what the catalyst was to get them into starting their own business. Today we're going to be talking to a friend of ours, Dan Bond, how he started in theatre down in London and took a lot of the skills that he learned there and implemented them into an actually really successful presentation business and events business as well. The challenges he has with technology and how he gets to grips with that, and how he's finding that technology can actually be really, really powerful for what he does now. So let's get through and let's have that chat with Dan. Dan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. We just want to find out a little bit about the man behind Dan Bond, if there is such a thing. So we just want to find out how you got started.
How did it all start?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I am possibly the most uncorporate person you can imagine. And I think that's been an advantage, because a lot of the time corporates are looking for somebody to come in and stir it up and make something new happen. So I've really been involved in doing that sort of thing. I started out in the theatre. Don't hold that against me, but it was good grounding. And I went to Central School of Speech and Drama, Darling, and it was very darling at that time, which was early 70s, and things were still, just had a slight whiff of marijuana and was really sort of pretty cool and all that sort of stuff. And it was great. And I got involved in the course there, came out, I worked at the Salisbury Playhouse as an ASM, assistant stage manager, which is the lowest of the low, and I was employed by perhaps one of the last actor managers, a guy called Reggie Solberg, who was a large, powerful man who frequently, passing rehearsal, would hear a gap in the rehearsal. There was no noise on stage, and he'd reach in and switch the lights off on the stage because he was going to save money. And he would all shout when he switched the lights off, and he'd say, "Well, speak. I'm not employing you to be quiet as actors," and that's the way it went. And I made the tea in the green room, which is what you have to do. And the early stages, I was very concerned that I made the best possible tea I could. So I warmed the pot and I got it all very carefully together. And I did make great tea. And Reggie called me across the green room on my second day, I think it was there. And he said, "My dear boy, if you continue to make tea of this quality, which is very good, you're going to be making tea for the rest of your life." And I realised that I needed to try and change my tack. So I put one bag in, I didn't heat the pot the following day. It was a lousy cup of tea. Reggie got it, and across the room, he just gestured to me, and that I thought I knew I'd done something right. And indeed, I wasn't asked to make the tea for another week on the cycle. So learning what to be good at, and yes, you should focus on being the best you can be all the time. Of course you should, but sometimes it's not to the best benefit. Long story, pardon me.
It's fine. So tell us a little bit about where Dan Bond is now. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of reverse engineer you as a person, as an individual. So what is it you do currently?
Well, I'm a presentation and business development specialist, which sounds a little bit vague, a little bit spooky, but essentially I help companies refine and define their business proposition, which means that they can be able to exploit every business opportunity and every communication opportunity, whether that's pitching for business, talking to market their business, exhibitions, networking, all that sort of thing. And unfortunately, well-delivered crap is still crap. So you've got to get the content right first. And if you don't get the content right, you might as well go home, because all the veneer in the world is not going to cover somebody who's got nothing to say. So essentially, content and delivery is what I do.
Okay. So was it a long journey to get to kind of Dan Bond, the presentation guru, dare I use that
please.
Word? But was it a long journey, or was it something that you naturally fell into and at what point in your your life did this
Did
come
I
about?
arrive? No,
Yeah.
I never had the sextant out to set my course to presentation, coaching or writing. And I'm a pretty bad dyslexic, actually, which I'll come back to, but it's been an advantage because when I read something, I remember it. And when I write something, I really put a lot of effort into it. So I write to speak, which is really important. And a lot of people just write to read. And getting the difference, that's what I do. So I started out in the West End, being a company manager. That's after having gone to drama school and done all that sort of stuff. And whilst I was doing that, somebody caught me and said, "So Dan, do you really fancy doing theatre for the rest of your life?" And I said, "No, probably not, but I don't know what else to do." And they said, "Well, do a bit of business theatre." I said, "Well, what's the difference between business theatre and traditional theatre?" And they said, "About 50 grand a year, mate." So I thought, yep, that's what I'll do. And I started to write and work on the delivery of events and conferences and that sort of thing. And I was freelance at that point. I was freelance when I was working in the theatre because you're just on a contract, which is a freelance contract to be whatever you need to be for that theatre company for that season. So I was employed as a freelance producer to put events on, whether that was for IBM in Paris or Parma or Vienna or those sorts of things. 800 IBMers in one place, trying very hard to enjoy themselves and learn something. And that's a real marathon, but fun. So you're developing the content for that sort of event, and a lot of it is creative stuff. But unlike the theatre, you've got absolutely piles of money to do it with, as long as you deliver. And that's the slightly different thing from theatre. You might have £750,000 to do an event on one day, but you've only got one day. You haven't got another event after that to say, well, we'll get it right. That's the dress rehearsal. We'll get it right next time round. You can't. So that sort of electricity was bloody great, actually. It really got the adrenaline going. And I enjoyed doing it, but living out of a suitcase for most of my life was not that much fun. I travelled a lot. I did about 38 countries, I think. But the problem is that I became an expert on hotel rooms, cabs, and airports, and nothing else. So I got a bit sick of that. And there was a period with conferences and events when the events were just, frankly, a little bit just 6 shades short of bullshit, because I did an event in Vienna. This gives you an idea of it. An orchestra pit of 26. We had 100 and something projectors. We had 20 dancers. We had Miss World, most of the cast of Yes Minister, and 6 Lippert Slalom horses. Now, this is not about business. This is just showmanship. So I enjoyed it for all that, but it had all the depth of an oil slick. So we really needed to be able to concentrate on the content. And I started to write for people, and events were more content orientated. And I started to think, well, maybe I should just do that one bit, which is write and coach people to present, which probably started round about 94, I suppose, 93, 94. And I started to do that, and it was great. I really found a niche. And I think having a niche is really important. And if I was ever to say to somebody now, especially now, don't be a generalist, be a niche person. And I got that niche, which is to coach people and get the best out of them, not train them, because you train SEALs, you've got to coach them. And I started to read up more about developing the best out of people, rather than just saying, oh, take your hands out your pockets and look at me when you're speaking to me, you know? And that's really important. So I've started to develop the niche, and my niche has become the power that I've got, because I did a lot of presentation work, which really wasn't perhaps all advantageous on the outside. And I did quite a bit of charity work. I got involved with doing some events for Save the Children at Buckingham Palace. And that was because I was doing a job for Olympia in York, creating a video for Olympia in York. And the guy who had commissioned me to do that, I'd also been asked to do something, an event in Buckingham Palace. And the great thing was that I met all these incredibly powerful people within blue chip companies who were also attending. And I was meeting them on the same level. I'd produced the event. I'd had direct contact with Princess Anne. I'd direct contact with the people involved in actually presenting at the event. And this is all pretty important stuff. So I'd say to people, never look past an opportunity or overlook an opportunity that gives you the chance to be able to broaden your development, broaden your ideas, a bit of self-development.
One of the things I'm really keen to kind of find out from you is technology now. Obviously, when you probably started, a lot of this digital stuff wasn't around.
A lot of this digital stuff wasn't.
How have you kind of adapted? Or do you still use those traditional kind of methods to get the point across? Or, how have you made that transition?
Okay, transition. I possibly haven't made that transition. And there was a wonderful time in conferences and events where every video was £25,000, all right? Just for reasons I've never yet to remember. But it was all done on tape, and it was all done on Beta and Betacam, not Betamax, by the way, just in case we're confusing there. And it was all done on Betacam, and you could, really at the early days, you could buy a channel of ADO, as it was called, which is digital memory, to use to create a video. But you had to buy it, and it was about £120 a half hour or something stupid. And so the technology's grown from that. Everything was slide projectors when I first started out, and just doing video projection was a real kerfuffle when you're doing events and getting large screen images. Now it's just not a problem at all. The technology has changed, yes, it has. But I come back to the well-delivered crap is still crap thing, which is no matter how wonderful the technology is, if you haven't produced something that's worth watching, that's worth connecting with, then you're still on a hiding to nothing. And the technology, yes, it has changed, but the fundamentals of what you've got to deliver with that technology, whether it's video, and you know that really well, if it's video, if it's Twitter, if it's any sort of content, it's the content. They talk about content marketing. It's the content. It's got to be great content. And that is whether you've got great technology or not. It actually doesn't matter, because whether I'm talking to you on a one-to-one basis right now, and the content's got to be good and work well, or whether I'm twittering to you, or whether I'm putting something on LinkedIn, or whether I'm putting something in Instagram, or whatever it is, or WhatsApp, or any of these things, it's about having interesting stuff and engaging material. And that's why I come back to what I do, which is refine and define people's business propositions so that they can really exploit an opportunity. And if you know exactly what you want to do as a business and who you are as a business, you can project that. Right, and literally project it using video, or you can project it using Twitter. So, but really, I'm a Luddite. Hey,
it's a really interesting point, and I think it does bring us back to that it is so important to make sure that you're getting a good message across, because there is so much rubbish out there, and it's becoming, even more consuming. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is that they're dumbed down, so that because there's this prevalence of stuff out there, that they're more accepting of rubbish, when really, to stand out, you want to make sure that you're actually nailing the message and you're getting it across really well. So it is important to understand that it's about the creation of the message. It's not how it's created, it's actually what it's saying.
Yeah.
And that's really important. So we'll never get away from that. So it's a really good, valid point. So I think there's a massive need for people to actually understand that. So if people want to find out more about Dan Bond and what he actually does for people, where would they find out more about you?
I think trying to find out about me is something which I've worked very hard on. And the thing I've worked really hard on is if you type Dan Bond into Google, I am number one. And that is the most powerful thing I've got. So when I go networking, I say to people, well, I haven't got a card, but if you put Dan Bond into Google, I'm number one. And you'll have heard me say, when I've done my 60 seconds or got up to do a little presentation, my name's Bond, Dan Bond. And I work very hard on that. Yes, I've got Dan Bond Presents as a Twitter feed. I haven't used it a great deal. I've got about 900 followers or what have you. I've got, I don't know, 1,500 followers on LinkedIn. I don't try very hard to do that because you can go to LinkedIn and find me there, and that'll tell you about the stuff that I've done. But it is about what you're about to do that matters, not necessarily the stuff that you've done. And I've worked with some interesting and celebrities and what have you like that. But when it comes down to it, everybody I work with is a celebrity. And if I don't make them a celebrity, then I'm not doing my job. So it's put Dan Bond into Google.
Excellent. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, speaking to you, and thank you very much for being part of this journey.